Hello everyone, Stormy Strike here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the new Star Stable Knabstruppers, specifically what's off about them. People leaked video and images of these horses before Star Stable made an official announcement. The video where these spoiler images were taken is linked below, by the way. And when I saw these leaked images, I thought, oh, I hope Star Stable is still working on the colors for these guys because they don't look like they're completed yet. Most of them look rather off and unrealistic. Well, it turns out Star Stable did an announcement about these horses and have a teaser image here that shows that these Knabstruppers are the same as the ones in the leaked files. Their colors are already completed. I'm honestly rather disappointed because some of these appaloosa patterns are really not realistic, and I'm going to explain why they aren't realistic and how they can be improved. I'm not going to touch on their model or conformation or animation here. I'm only going to be talking about their appaloosa patterns. I know Star Stable is very much a fantasy game. They have horses that change into magical colors and little zebra ponies and all that. But they are generally consistent about their other horses having realistic coloring and markings. Therefore, these horses should stick to that. You are free to disagree with me on that or on what I think should be changed on these horses. I'm just trying to show what would make them look more realistic. If you have not looked at a ton of pictures and videos of appaloosa spotted horses in real life, you may not think there's anything off with these colors at first glance. But as someone that has looked at over 100 different references of appaloosa horses and trying to replicate them in model horses, I have gained an eye to see what is realistic and plausible, and what is not realistic in the horse world. Not all of these Knabstruppers have issues. Some of them are actually okay as they are. The chestnut blanket here is fine. This one looks good and doesn't really need anything changed about it. He looks realistic, his color and pattern is pretty. The black blanket appaloosa one is also fine. Maybe not quite perfect, but it's fine. The spots on its haunches maybe could be improved a tiny bit, but for the most part it doesn't require any changes. Now it is the other four horses that need some help. Let's start with the chestnut leopard. This one has the right idea and is on the right track, but there are some big issues here. First off, this spot right here is way too big and way too much of a perfect circle. It does not look realistic at all. I would definitely size down that spot. Now, leopard appaloosas can have very large spots in real life, as you'll see in these reference photos here. But notice something very important. The majority of the spots on these horses are very large. It's not just a couple spots that are oversized. Many of the spots are too much like perfect circles, but the real main issue is that the spots do not flow with the horse's body. The spots that are in a more oval, natural-looking shape do not point in the right direction. If you look at photos of appaloosa horses, you'll notice that their spots typically go in the direction of their hair. Notice how these spots are not perfect circles, and they point down along the horse's body, and then they slope over the horse's haunches. Even horses that have more rounded spots that are closer to perfect circles still flow in the same direction. This Star Stable horse does not flow correctly. Now, some of the spots are flowing the right way, but there are a bunch of spots mixed in that do not, making this horse's pattern look wrong. The spots look random instead of natural. For example, these two spots on the horse's shoulder, they are nearly perpendicular to the spots above them. That's why these spots do not look right. If you look at appaloosas in real life, their spots generally don't line up like that. They don't line up perpendicular from each other. They all flow in the same directions. Another great example of these spots not working is in this photo by Star Stable, where we see the spots on the horse's chest. Again, they aren't flowing with the horse. These spots are too horizontal, while these spots are very vertical. And then there's these, which I'm not really sure what they're doing. They are way too round and are not really going in any particular direction. Take a look at this real chestnut appaloosa's chest. It has some spots that are pretty circular, but they are still flowing in the same direction. And then when there is a change of direction on the lower end of the chest, the spots transition to that. They don't suddenly become horizontal. They first begin to become more diagonal and transition into the change of the hair flow. The placements of the spots on this horse is also a little too evenly placed. Like there's too much even amounts of white space between too many of the spots. This blank area of white on the horse's neck is actually good. If there was a little more white space between some of the areas, and in some areas the spots are a little bit more closely put together, it would look more realistic and less like someone programmed this in. However, it does look like there are hardly any spots on the inside of the horse's hind legs, and that is weird. There needs to be some spots there because there are spots on the outside of the legs, therefore there should be spots on the inside. Okay, we spent a lot of time on that horse, so let's move on to another one. How about the other chestnut Appaloosa, although this one has a lot smaller spots. This one, for the most part, actually is not that bad, and it does have more of what I was talking about before, about the flow of spots. These spots flow together better. They flow with the horse in the direction of the horse's hair. I do feel like the front of the horse, however, has the problem of spots being too evenly spaced out. The spots on the face also look a little strange for some reason, a little bit too round, a little bit too evenly placed. The spotting on the legs is a little odd. I see the look they are going for, but they either need to remove these big spots altogether or add more. Right now this looks a little strange. The inside of this horse's hind legs also, again, do not have any spots, which is very weird. Unless they just didn't finish those areas in these leaked images, but there needs to be spots there. Let's move on to the black varnish leopard. Actually, I guess he's more of like an extended blanket Appaloosa varnish looking guy here. Now this one looks really cool in this photo from Star Stable. Not exactly that realistic with these varnish spots, but he does look really cool. The problem with these spots, I think, is that they are a little bit too contrasty, a little bit too much black and white. If you look at Appaloosas, when they have a varnish going on, what happens is they have white hairs mixed in with their other color. So when there's varnishing going on, it actually makes them look like a mix of white and the other color. So in this case, it should look a little bit more gray instead of this kind of stark black and white. The leaked images of this horse look a little better because it's taken a little farther away. So that black and white, well, I guess it's actually more of like a dark gray, but that dark gray and white, when farther away, look more like a gray mix of the two. I think to fix this, they would just need to either add a lot more little spotting of white to give it more of that gray look, or make those little tiny white spots a little bit more gray. This horse does suffer from a lot of the problems the first chestnut leopard Appaloosa we looked at does. These spots are just way too big. They do not look like they belong with these much smaller spots. I feel like whoever created this pattern looked at two very different references of Appaloosas and then just kind of combined them. If you want this horse to have big spots, then you need to primarily give it a lot of big spots. It does not look right at all as it is right now. Either the smaller spots need to be made bigger, or these bigger spots need to be made smaller. The flow of spots on this horse isn't too bad. However, it does have some spots that don't really match up. These spots on the shoulder, once again, for example, they need to be more on a diagonal or vertical path. They're once again too perpendicular with the spots above it and below it. Otherwise, the flow of spots on this horse is mostly okay. I'd say the main thing that needs to be fixed is the inconsistency of these massive spots. Lastly is the snowflake Appaloosa. I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but the main problem with this one is that there are areas where the spots aren't really flowing right. Snowflake Appaloosas can look really wild and strange with their spots, but they still mostly follow the growth of the hair. This whole section on the shoulder is, once again, looking too perpendicular and not flowing right with the other spots. The spots also need a little bit better spacing. They feel a little too uniform in regards to placement. If you look at some snowflake Appaloosas, they typically don't have this even spread of spots on them. Sometimes they're all clumped together in only a couple areas. Sometimes there are areas on the horse where there are spots, but less spots in other areas. This Knabstrupper is on the right track, but the placement of the spots can be improved, or perhaps maybe even just adding more smaller spots would help. Doing more clumps of spots, like they did on the top right side of this horse's haunches, would also help make it look more realistic. Overall, all of these horses have potential to look really great, but they just need some minor changes to them to really make them look good and like plausible Appaloosa markings. I hope this video was somewhat informative about Appaloosa markings and what looks right and doesn't look right. I wouldn't consider myself an expert by any means, but this is from what I've learned and observed over the years. Let me know your thoughts about the Star Stable Knabstruppers. Do you plan on getting any of them? Is there one that stands out as your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!